jugs of water as we could, and my wife Amy started cooking food that would be, it would keep well. The other thing that happened from a prep perspective, specifically for us, was we moved the grill, which normally we have a propane grill at the building that all the residents share. And we had an elevator at that time still. And we moved that grill up to the rooftop deck, thinking that, well, if the refrigerators happen to go out, like we'll at least be able to cook, because we're going to need to cook up this food. So that turned out to be like a very prescient thing. That was pretty much the extent of our preparations.
So let's fast forward to that Friday. What did you see?
Well, Friday morning started kind of normally, except for the fact that Thursday night our dog had been very nervous, which is not like her. She was pacing around and stuff. And the water was rising on on Friday morning. And I was working in my office, and since our windows face the river, different neighbors were sort of excitedly coming into the apartment to look and see how high the river was, and there was a general feeling of excitement. It was raining. Around 11 a.m., I guess the power went out. We had gone up to the roof, and we were watching the flood happen from the roof. The neighbors that were in the building, I think there were about 18 people that were here, about 8 dogs, a couple of rabbits who stayed in their apartment, a couple of cats stayed in their apartments. We began to gather on the roof, basically, and watch the destruction unfold here in Marshall.
What time frame? How long were you up there watching?
Oh, I see. So the power sort of cut out around 11 a.m. I think we still had cell service for a couple hours after that. And we basically were between our apartment and that rooftop deck throughout the day. Now, what happened was around 2 p.m. it got sunny out, but the water was fierce, man, and it was still bringing all sorts of debris down the river. You'd see these giant propane tanks come flying down the river and smash into the bridge. Then they'd get sucked under the bridge and they'd pop out the other side. It was really dramatic. There was all sorts of stuff. There was a guy across the river who had like a lot with skidoos and stuff over there. And early in the day, those were going down the river. Basically, the river just took over the valley and rose to, it's been well documented, I think, what happened in Marshall, but the first floor of everything downtown was completely underwater, ultimately, by the time it crested around 8 o'clock that night, and into the second floor of some of the buildings. In our building over here, we sit a little higher up. Their water was chest high on the first floor. So we had no egress of the building, and we had dogs. We had a really good community of people, and we began to sort of just pitch in. I mean, that day was basically spent drinking on the roof and being shocked and shooting cell phone footage of what happened in Marshall. We lost communication sometime that day with the outside world, which was impactful because, well, we'll get to that part later. When we began to realize later, the following day, that this was a regional disaster. At first we thought, well, our little town flooded, and that's all we knew. We had no access to any information whatsoever. One of our neighbors, her studio went into the river with all of her life's work. And she came up to the roof after that happened, and, what can you say in that situation? So that was pretty much Thursday. When the sun went down, one of my friends who has a business in town said, well, I'm really glad I don't have to look at this anymore. Because his business then was shut down for 6 months after that day.
So in the aftermath of that, what do you remember?
About that day?
As you're going into recovery, basically, survival mode.
Well, our community was really awesome. Everyone in the building sort of pitched in wherever their strengths were. and people, we had to secure our building because there was no power. Oh, here's the other thing. The fire alarms started to go off. They went off in everyone's apartment, and they went off in the hallways with beeping and blinking lights. Now, what that's telling you is get out, but you can't get out. There's nowhere to go. Now, it's not, I don't want to give the image that I never felt in danger, okay? We were watching buildings fall into the river, and afterwards, people had said, many people have asked me, when you watched this, weren't you afraid for yourself? And I really wasn't. And the other neighbors in the building weren't either. This is a very strong building. It sits a little further back. We're protected by the power plant out here. There's a hydroelectric power plant that sits right in front of the building. So we weren't really, maybe it was naive, but we weren't nervous. I live on the 3rd floor, and our apartment is fine up here. And then what happened was, a couple of the people in the building were able to go around with a ladder. The apartments that they could get into, they took the fire alarms off. But the hallway alarms, the building alarms, we couldn't stop that. There was no, the water was chest high on the 1st floor. There was no way to get rid of that. So it was really sort of stressful and horrible. And we had a couple nights of that in the building here, sleeping with earplugs and stuff. That beeping was like really hellish.
Nonstop.